Hello and welcome to Lord of the Board. My name is Sam Smith, and today we are going to be doing a strategy guide and overview on Alice from Unmatched: The Battle of Legends Volume 1. Now with this strategy series, I'm going to have an order of how I discuss things. First, I'm going to talk about Alice's character ability. I'm going to talk about the movement and all of those characteristics. Then I'm going to be talking over Alice's cards. And then lastly, I'm going to go over 3 tips and strategies that will hopefully improve your next gameplay as her. And before we start, a special thank you to our sponsor, which is going to be Restoration Games, the creator of Unmatched. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Now Alice is a melee hero that has 13 health, and she has a sidekick called the JABBERWOCK that has 8 health and is also melee. Now 13 and 8, this is a pretty high health pool in the span of, the entire game series, so she's pretty good on the health side. Then her special ability is probably one of the more interesting things about her. It says that when you place Alice, you're going to choose whether you start the game as big or small. And then when Alice is big, add 2 to the value of her attack cards, and when Alice is small, you're going to add +1 to the value of her defense cards. So this gives her a lot of interesting, kind of versatile options throughout the game. And determining whether you are big or small and the timing on that is really going to be the way that you play well as Alice. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the Alice specific cards, starting with her attack cards. Now first off, we've got the card O Frabjous Day, which is a 4 attack card, and this card really is pretty great. The reason why is because at 4 strength, it's already a really good attack card, but pairing this with Alice being big, this will allow it to be a 6 attack strength, and even if it is fainted, that will not stop any of that damage from getting through. Now it does state that after combat you will change size, so this is a good way to set up for playing a little bit more defensively after smacking your opponent. Then we've got the 3 attack card, Snicker Snack. And this allows you to, after combat, if you win the combat, you can look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card for them to discard. Now, the reason why this is so great is because in Unmatched, knowledge is essentially power in the game, and knowing more about your opponent's hand is extremely important. Even further than that, being able to actually discard a card could be game-changing, and ensuring that you're able to use this when an opponent has like a full hand of cards will give you the highest chance of getting rid of something that they want to be holding onto. But remember that this is only if you win the combat. So my advice would be to only use this card if you are big, because then it's at least a 5 instead of a 3, and you have a little bit of a higher chance winning that combat. And have you ever wondered what's on the other side of a mushroom? I really hope it doesn't look like this, but the artwork is beautiful, but this card kind of terrifies me a little bit. So we've got the other side of the mushroom, which is a 3 attack card. This says that after combat, you can move Alice up to 3 spaces and then change size. And the reason why I really like this card is that you're able to really use it to get into combat, get right up close to your opponent's face, and then run out and retreat, going down to maybe the small size. So I do like to start my turn big when I'm trying to use this card, move in with my first action, and then my second action being an attack with this card, allowing me to pop off 5 health and then run away and go small onto the defensive. Now moving on to Alice's versatile cards, we've got Mad as a Hatter, which is either a 3 attack or 3 defense card, and it allows you to, after combat, move each of your fighters up to 2 spaces and then change your size. Now, the reason why I like this card is because I usually use it pretty much exclusively as a defense card. And the reason for that is because you're able to move both of your fighters and position them. So if you're being attacked and let's say you're small, you could use this as a defense card. You could make Alice big, and then you could position both your JABBERWOCK and Alice getting kind of ready for your next turn. And also keep in mind that if you use it as a defense, it's actually a 4 defense strength, which can block most damage and will even suck up a lot of the heavier attacks that are targeted against you. So like I said, I really like this as a defense card, but obviously in some circumstances you might want to use it as an attack card if you have a good opportunity and you still want to pop off 5 damage to your opponent. And then we have got I Am Late, which is a 2-value defense or attack card that allows you to, after combat, move Alice up to 5 spaces and then change size. So in a way, it's a little bit similar to Mad as a Hatter, except this only moves Alice. However, it moves Alice 5 spaces. And just like Mad as a Hatter, I like to use this as a defense card. Reason being, it's 2 strength. So you're going to get either 3 defense or you're going to get 4 attack. You've got so many other cards that can make even higher than 4 attack. So this is definitely better suited as a defense card with that 3 defense. And once again, if you're attacked, you get to move 5, position Alice pretty much wherever you want around the premises, and then you can swap her size to big, which is awesome and will really set up you for success in your next turn. And now moving on to defense-specific cards, which Alice only has 1 type, which is called Looking Glass. She has 2 copies of this card in her deck, and this is just a 2 defense card. Now, 2 defense is really bad. It's not a very good defense count. This isn't really going to help you very much. You're probably still going to take damage. However, the ability is incredible. This is one of my favorite cards in the game, actually. I just really like it. And for one, the artwork is gorgeous, but 2, just check out this ability. So the Looking Glass after combat allows you to choose 2 different effects. You can either draw 2 cards, Alice can recover 3 health, or you can place Alice in any other space. Now, I personally just think that drawing 2 cards and reviving 3 health are the better options, so likely you're going to want to use those. Drawing cards in this game is huge. Like I said, more information is more power in this game, and the more that you're going through the deck, the more options you're going to have to punish your opponent throughout your gameplay. And in addition to that, recovering health is the other super important thing in this game. Health is literally your life force. If you run out of health, you lose. In games where you win by 3 health, that literally meant the game for you. So keep in mind that those are probably the better ones, and placing Alice in any other space has some niche uses, but it's likely that you'll actually use the other 2. Now, keep in mind that you're definitely going to want to use this when you actually need to revive that health. So you're going to want to take a couple hits first, and then maybe pop this off as a defense. Now let's go ahead and talk about Alice's scheme cards, starting with Drink Me, which allows her to draw 2 cards and change the size. Once again, great card because you're getting more cards through your deck, and you can change your size so you can time this to go from your small to big or big to small. But the real kicker is those 2 cards. This is one of the 2 ways that you can actually gain cards as Alice throughout your game, this and Looking Glass. And so this is really an important card, and it really will come in handy to get those extra cards. And her only other scheme in her deck is Eat Me, which allows you to move Alice up to 3 spaces and change size. I do like this card. I think it can lead to some really good plays. I think that if you use it as your first action, it's probably at its best as long as you're small, because then you could change to big and move over to your opponent, and then you could surprise them with a really heavy attack. That's probably how I would use it. There are some other uses that you could probably use this for. You could use it as maybe a retreat, maybe at the end of your turn, but I just like to play Alice extremely aggressively, so I'd pretty much just use it as the first action, get up close, and then get a really powerful attack in. Now the JABBERWOCK has a total of 4 cards in the deck, but that's 2 different cards, each with 2 copies. Now I'm going to start with Jaws the Bite. This is a 4 attack card that allows you to, after combat, deal 2 damage to any 1 fighter adjacent to the Jabberwock. Now this can be really good when you're battling characters with a lot of sidekicks like, say, Medusa, because you're able to pop off that damage and remove a sidekick essentially. But the other thing about this is that this is a really powerful attack. For strength and a really good ability, the Jabberwock is a force to be reckoned with, especially with the next card that I'm going to share with you, which is Claws That Catch. And this says that during the combat, if the opposing fighter is a hero, this card's value is 5 instead. Now, I know that this is going to be self-explanatory, but don't use this on anything else but a hero. That's pretty much all I've got for you as a tip for that card. I really like the Jabberwock, but these are the only 4 cards, and so it's gonna be a little bit interesting to see how often the Jabberwock really gets used in your game, and it's gonna depend on if you draw these cards or not. Alright, and now we are moving on to the Any cards, which are all versatile in Alice's deck, starting with Mansome Foe. This one is unique to Alice. This is not in any other deck. This is a really fun card that allows you to, during combat, discard the top card of your deck, add its boost value to this card's value. With that in mind, you could deal an absolute ton of damage if you're Alice using this card. If you somehow got the 4 boost card, which would be really sad in a way because there's only 1 copy of those cards, but you're going to be dealing 7 damage just right there, and if you're big, that's 9 total damage. This is a crazy power play. Even if it's just 2, that's still going to be 7 damage that you're going to be dealing as long as you're big. And I don't even mind the fact that you're discarding a card, because like I said, Alice needs to be on the forefront attacking her opponent and ending that game very, very quickly. And now we're going to be moving on to some of the more common cards in Alice's deck. And we're going to start with Skirmish, which is either a 4 attack or 4 defense card that allows you to use it with either Jabberwock or Alice, same as all of these cards. And it says that after combat, if you won the combat, you can choose one of your fighters in the combat and move them up to 2 spaces. Now, I do like this as an attack card, and I like it with Alice specifically. This can deal 6 damage, and that's likely going to win you the combat. And then you can position Alice to a different location, maybe retreating, maybe positioning for another attack. And then we've got Momentous Shift, which is a 3 attack or 3 defense, which allows you to, during combat, if your fighter started this turn in a different space, this card's value is 5 instead. Now you're always going to want to use this as your secondary attack, because then you can pop off a move and then get this with 5 strength, and this can be extremely good when you are big as Alice, because then that makes this a 7 attack, which is awesome. And then we've got the card that we all love to use against our opponents, but the one that we hate to see used against us, the Feint card. This is a 2 attack or 2 defense card that its effect is to immediately cancel all effects on your opponent's card. And playing these is a whole strategy guide on its own. I've got a video linked down below of my friend who actually did a video on the intricacies of Feint and when you should be playing it, and that really should get you started on knowing when exactly to use those effects. However, I will say that this is a great follow-up to the Snicker Snack attack card, because then you've looked at their whole hand, you've already gotten rid of one of the cards, but you can keep in mind some of the other cards with their powerful effects, and you can kind of try to gauge what they're going to play next, and maybe you could cancel that effect and make it worthless for them to have played that card. And lastly, we have got Regroup, which is a 1 attack or 1 defense card that says that after combat, you can draw 1 card, and if you win the combat, you can draw 2 cards instead. Now, this is a great card to use to attempt to bait out your opponent's Feint cards. I like to use this in conjunction with either my Alice or my Jabberwock when my opponent is suspecting that I am going to do a large attack, and they are going to try and play a Feint card, and then they waste it on this card. It is the best feeling that you can get. Now keep in mind that the Jabberwock's abilities are both really predictable, and if the Jabberwock is about to make an attack, you can sometimes slide in a regroup instead of one of the Jabberwock's attack cards and pull out one of the feints, which can be a really satisfying feeling. And now that we have looked at Alice's deck, let's go ahead and look at the 3 tips and strategies that I have for you. Now, my first tip and strategy is kind of a thought process. One thing that you're going to want to think about is that when you're playing Alice, you're going to want to treat being big as kind of the default stance, and you're going to want to treat being small as kind of your secondary, more niche stance. So when you're playing the game, you're going to want to pretty much always be big. It's just the better of the 2 abilities. So you always got to be thinking, when you're going to play a card, is that going to set myself up for a defensive position? And is that good at this point in the game? Or is that going to set myself up for an offensive position? And is that good for this portion of the game? You have to think that way, because remember, all of these cards that say to change your size, that isn't an option. You have to do it. So planning out these cards to make sure that you're set up for success is going to be the key in playing Alice well throughout your game. And as a second strategy tip, it is going to be to keep the Jabberwock alive. Now the reason why this is important is because this Jabberwock has 8 health. Now that's pretty good, but if the Jabberwock is slain and is not able to actually use any of the attack cards, then you've wasted your sidekick. And yes, you could say that about all sidekicks, but the Jabberwock is extra special because the attack cards are just so good. So if you're able to keep the Jabberwock alive throughout the game, having the chance to actually use those attack cards could actually bring you a lot closer to winning and a lot quicker. So what I like to do is I like to keep my Jabberwock mostly out of the conflict. I like to have the Jabberwock hovering around Alice, but not necessarily too far away from Alice to where I can't pull the Jabberwock in order to initiate an attack. Alice is one of those characters that is a little bit more inconsistent with her playstyle. You can get some really good cards, and some games you just don't get that great of cards. But with any setup in hand that you're getting, you're always going to have some options to do some powerful attacks, especially when you're big, getting that +2 attack addition. So my biggest tip here would be to always keep the pressure. Attack early and attack often. Do not run away and hide in the corner. That is not how you play with Alice if you want to win the game, especially with a deck as inconsistent as hers. It's just the last thing that you want to do. So with that, that is really it for my strategy guide and strategy tips for Alice. And I really hope that you enjoyed this start to the series of many where we go through all of the characters in Unmatched. But if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like as well as subscribe down below. If you want to know when my next video releases, you can go ahead and click the bell notification. If you have any questions about gameplay or literally anything Unmatched or any game related, go ahead and leave a comment down below, or you can contact me on any of my many social medias. The links to those will be in the description down below. But with that, thank you so much for watching. Let's go ahead and drop the beat.